Hello leaders, welcome to the 4th through 6th grade leader video for July 3rd and 4th. Happy birthday, America! All right, let's get started. So the name of the Loop Show series that we are going to be in this weekend is called Untangling Truth. And the main idea from this week's video is truth, obviously, but we're going to be talking specifically about how just because something sounds true doesn't necessarily mean that it actually is true. And so understanding that truth can be messy and everything can get tangled if we are left to discover truth by ourselves. Luckily, that's not the position we find ourselves in as Christians. We have a story that reminds us of what is actually true. And more importantly, we have a person who has called us into the truth and has said, "Follow me as I am the truth." And that person obviously is Jesus. And so we wanted you and these kids to kind of be able to discover and engage in this conversation talking about what is truth and where do we find truth and how can we live that truth-focused life this week. So for the activity this week, we are going to be putting some worksheets in the kids' bags so that way they will each individually have a worksheet, as well as you will have one to go along with your activity guide, so that way you understand what phrases and the way that the phrases are all tangled up. So the focus of the activity is to help the kids untangle the words that are on their page, and then help them identify whether or not the statement that has been untangled is a statement that is God's truth, or if it's a popular thought, something that is communicated that maybe sounds true, but when we get to the heart of the statement, it's not actually biblical. And so the goal is that we would use this activity to help kids identify not just if the statement is God's truth or popular thought, but why each statement is either God's truth or popular thought, and what the distinction is between those. And so on your guys' activity sheets, on the back side, there'll be a short description on whether or not each statement is actually a popular thought or God's truth. And if it's a popular thought, it'll just have a little bit of a reasoning for why it is. And if it's God's truth, it'll have a biblical reference as to why that statement is found in God's truth and where it's found in God's truth. So it will be really helpful. One of the goals of this activity could be just to help the kids navigate their Bible, to help them see that there's truth in this word that can redirect us and point us to Jesus. And ultimately, it's useful for discovering the path that leads to truth. So that's one of the things to kind of identify with. If you have a group with younger kids, it may be helpful for you to do this activity by helping unscramble the words for them, and then just focusing on whether or not each idea as a group coming to a consensus on whether or not it's God's truth or it's a popular thought. The more cohesive you use it and the more collective you do this activity with the younger kids, the easier it'll probably go. All right, so because of the length of this particular activity, it might be beneficial to kind of use this activity as the lesson because it is a good conversation starter and it does draw them to the core of the lesson and also into the Bible, which is a big focus for what we want kids to get from the lesson. So if you have any extra time, you can go over the challenge cards, help them identify their next step, or go through some of those additional lesson questions that are on the lesson guide page. So that's all for this week. I will see you guys 30 minutes prior to each service. Should be light this weekend, I would imagine. So come prayed up, so that way whoever God brings us, will be willing to serve them and care for them. And wear your Team Kids shirts as well. All right, I'll see you guys this weekend. Bye.